for many people to see us rally around YarAdua and support his political aspirations, they expected that we are doing so because we are going to be settled somehow. Okay? But for me personally, I don't know about Nuhu, and Nuhu was a career public servant, so he did this as a matter of duty. But for me personally, I didn't do anything for YarAdua because I expected him to do anything for me. I didn't want anything. I just wanted to move on with my life. Yes, when and I have written about this. I wrote an essay on my relationship with YarAdua when I was in exile. When Umar was invited by Obasanjo and asked to go and pick the nomination forms, I was one of the first people he went to visit in Abuja. He came to my residence and spoke to me and sought for my support. And I told him that, of course, you can take my support for granted. What else do you want? He said, bring the economic team please to support me because you guys have done this, I need your help. And I said, no problem. So all these things we did, and honestly, I did it unconditionally. I did not do it in expectation of anything. I did it because I believed Umar was going to be a decent president.
Okay. Now, and the picture you have given me is something that tries to contradict a few things we have heard and noted earlier about YarAdua, your relationship with him and the man himself, and your eventual parting of ways. So maybe you should just briefly tell us from your experience now. I'm sorry for trying to copy this presidency's idea. Tell us about the YarAdua we don't know.
Well, I don't know whether I'm the right person to ask that question.
From your
because
encounters.
the YarAdua I knew was YarAdua the student in Ahmadu Bello University, YarAdua the bachelor before he married Ture. I met him before Ture met him. I knew him before Ture knew him. And YarAdua the lecturer at CAS and general manager of Sambo Farms. This was the YarAdua I knew. Okay, Major General Shaw YarAdua's kid brother and so on, and I respected elder brother. I know that smoked a lot and used to drink a lot and all that. That's the YarAdua I knew. I knew the person. I didn't know YarAdua as governor because I visited Katsina only once throughout the time he was governor. I didn't know him as president, and he surprised me because he turned out to be completely different from what I thought he would be. So I think there has been some kind of metamorphosis, a transformation from the YarAdua I knew, YarAdua the person, to YarAdua the president. And I think only those that have walked with him through these trajectories would be in the best position.
What particular difference did you notice?
Well, okay, let me just say this. Many people think YarAdua is very quiet and doesn't say much. Wrong. If YarAdua is comfortable with you, okay, as he was with me, 80% of the time he was the one talking when I'm with him. Anytime I was with Umar YarAdua, 80% of the time he was the one talking and I was listening. But the moment a stranger comes in, he keeps quiet. Okay. But honestly, I thought that everything I knew about him pointed to the fact that he was going to be, a decent president. He will get good guys to work with him. He would be open to new ideas and so on and so forth. And when he became president, he seemed close and so on and so forth. And before he could find his feet, I guess his illness became more serious and he just never recovered.
From the little I knew about what we thought was the relationship between you, I was particularly shocked that you found your way into exile. So,
No.
What was the problem that caused this thing?
I honestly don't know for sure. I can only tell you all the snippets I've had, because one of the things I had to do was to try to figure out what happened with YarAdua. What did I do wrong? Because as a human being, I must open myself to learning. What did I do wrong? What did I do to offend this man that he would want me dead? Because YarAdua wanted me dead. It was that bad.
In what sense?
I had very reliable information from very senior security sources that there was a point at which if I came back to Nigeria, I was not going to be let alive. I was going to get killed. Okay, it was that bad. And the person that told me is not a flippant person, and he was well connected in the administration. Okay, so, and I had to ask myself, so why, what happened? This man that I have seen as someone like an elder brother from 1972 when I first met him, what happened? What did I do wrong? Okay, so to try to find answers to that question, I have tried to speak to many people that were close to YarAdua in his presidency. Okay, many that were his advisors, many that were his ministers, some governors like James Ibori. I went to visit James Ibori in Dubai prison to ask him precisely that question. Has YarAdua confided in you as to what I did to him?
What did Ibori say?
I will not be specific, but let me tell you the 2 or 3 stories I've had. Some people in the YarAdua circle said Obasanjo told YarAdua to be very careful of Nuhu Ribadu and Nasir Rufai, that we're stubborn and we're going to give YarAdua problems. So YarAdua felt the need to take us out. Okay, because Obasanjo sort of scared him into thinking there will be threats to him. Okay, now I don't buy that. I don't buy that because I knew for sure that it was not everything Obasanjo told YarAdua that he did. So if he picked and chose what he wanted to do, why did he pick and choose this to go after me or after Nuhu? Do you understand? It wasn't like Obasanjo tells YarAdua go to the toilet and he does, and so on. So for me, even if that is true and I doubt it, I still hold YarAdua responsible because he was the president and he took his actions and he chose what to act upon and what not to act upon. The other one we've had was that YarAdua just felt that Nuhu and my humble self were too visible and we thought too much of ourselves. That Obasanjo gave us too much leeway and we had become national figures, and he just felt threatened by us and he felt the need to clip our wings. But I was not in government. I was not even in the country when all these things started. Okay, when the public hearings that he sponsored against me in the Senate started, I was in London trying to complete my law degree. I came back just to appear before the committee. I was not even in the country. So how could someone that has left the country and minding his own business be a threat to you? You understand? Of course, Nuhu was here and doing his job, so perhaps Nuhu appeared as a threat, but I didn't see me as a threat. The third one that we had, which to me is probably more believable because it made more sense knowing YarAdua and his links to spiritualists, was that a particular spiritualist that YarAdua listened to a lot told him that a certain person that is slender, wearing glasses, whose name starts with the letter N, was going to run for president in 2011. Okay, and YarAdua thought that must be me because there are also stories going around then, even when YarAdua picked the nomination forms, that Obasanjo considered me or him in the final shortlist. I don't think it is true. As far as I know, the people on the Obasanjo's final shortlist were YarAdua, Makarfi, and Abdullahi Adam. Okay, these were the 3 that I knew Obasanjo was actively considering, when it was clear he couldn't hand over to Odili. Okay, but Odili was his first choice. This we knew. All of us in the government, we knew. Okay, so I don't think my name ever came into any shortlist. But YarAdua must have had that, and now a Marabu telling him that somebody whose name starts with the letter N was going to run for president in 2011, was going to challenge him. So he felt that he needed to go after us. He go after me, and maybe Nuhu, because Nuhu's name starts with N too. And maybe the Marabu was right after all, because in 2011 Nuhu ran for president. But it wasn't me. But I wear glasses and I'm slender like Nuhu. I don't think they said the guy was tall or short. If they had said the guy was tall, maybe I would have been saved the aggravation. But this version to me is more believable, knowing Umar YarAdua and his fixation on spiritualists and marabouts and all that. So I have spoken to many people. I don't want to mention their names because some of them spoke to me in strictest confidence. But my visit to James Ibori was widely known, so I would say that. But I spoke to people like that, close to YarAdua, to try to figure out what did I do wrong, because I need to learn, because there is no point repeating the same mistakes. Okay, what did I do? Because as far as I know, all I have done for Umar YarAdua all my life was respect, affection, and help and support. And I don't want to go into the ways and means I have supported him all through the years, because I know that his family knows, those close to him know what I did for him, even in his presidential run. So I don't need to go into that. But how can I be nice to someone and then he turns back and goes after me and even wanting me dead? I had to learn. So that's why I went to all this. But at the end of the day, I came out of it only confused, because I couldn't get anything substantive as to what it was I did. Okay, it was mostly what he felt I would do, or you do understand. So I was convicted of a crime that I was yet to commit in the YarAdua court. That was all. But it also made me feel better, because then I knew I didn't do anything. If I knew in my heart of hearts that I had offended him, then I would have felt bad. But it was clear that I had not, and I was just targeted for destruction.
These are just interesting revelations, because it's, and coming after you, like you said earlier, you had told him that you were not going to be in government, you were going to be from operating from the outside and stuff like that. And even if anybody told him, aside from the Marabu, because there were also stories then that some of the insiders too were also telling him that you could be a threat to him. We had those kind of, I didn't know of the Marabu angle. So if you had actually told him privately that this was your position, why would you become so overwhelmed by?
No, because I later learned, because I made that point. But how could I be a threat to YarAdua when I was out of the country in school? So, well, you went back, you went to UK and America so that you will develop your war chest to come and fight him, because you have very rich American and British friends and companies and all your imperialist supporters, because you're an IMF World Bank boy, you did privatization, you did this, you did that. So they must have represented to him that even my declining to be available for public service and my relocation to UK and US to study was a strategic move to prepare for 2011. And it was ridiculous, because it was none of those. I just like going to school. As a matter of fact, since I left university in 1980, every 3 years I make it a point of duty. Every 2-3 years I go back to school, because I think learning is a continuous process. Even this October I'm going to school, because I haven't been to any educational institution since I graduated from Harvard in 2009, and I'm feeling a little lost. I always like going to school to update myself, so I go 2-week, 3-week programs. I always do that every 2-3 years. That's how I am. That's what I enjoy doing.
But eventually, what we saw was a torrent of events, like Senate decision. I mean, Senate probe, and then the final decision to indict you and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we all, of course, it's evident from what we've been saying so far. It's evident that, and from the reports then, that most of those things were masterminded by the YarAdua presidency. But the real question, the real worry for me is, beyond money that is always said to have been presented before National Assembly members to get them to do the bidding of the presidency, why is it that our National Assembly can't, in the real sense, extricate itself from the presidency, and so that they are always seen as being at the beck and call of the presidency? What exactly is the problem?
I don't know. I can only offer 2 or 3 thoughts on the matter. The National Assembly is the least developed arm of government, because anytime the military takes over, the first thing they do is dissolve the legislature, because that's the real representative of the people. So our our legislative culture has not developed in the same way the executive branch and the judicial branch have remained preserved and been developing somewhat. Okay, and in any case, in the 3 arms of government, the executive is always first among equals. okay, because it is the largest branch of the government and it is the one that gets things done. Okay, the judiciary settles disputes. It could overrule both the legislature and the executive and say what you're doing is unconstitutional, but that's it. Okay, so I think the the immature legislative culture in the country as a result of prolonged years of military rule is partly responsible for that. Secondly, I think most politicians go into politics as a business. Unfortunately, this is the political culture that has developed in Nigeria. It is not public service, it is business. It is a way to be comfortable. It is a way to to be rich. It is a way to get your friends and your companies and your relation contracts and so on and so forth. Okay? Now, because of that, the only way you can get contracts is to be subservient to the executive branch because they award the contracts. The only way you can get employment for your friends and your constituents is to be subservient to the executive branch because they are the ones with jobs to offer. Okay? So, and thirdly, because the institutions are weak and there are no checks and balances and everyone can just get away with everything literally, there is a conspiracy between the arms of government to just rob their backs. So there is no sense of objectivity in pursuing, one's mandate. So there is this incestuous relationship between the executive and the legislative branches, and with the executive branch, having the advantage of balance of power because of its control of resources and jobs and contracts and so on and so forth. This is what I think is happening. Okay, but finally, and the most important, and I think this is the point really, this is where we went badly wrong, is the current system in which governors at the state level and the president at national level control parties. Okay, so they control who got nomination. So if you are a senator from your state and you are vocal against the president and you are in the same party as the president, you can bet your life at the next election cycle you will lose your nomination. You will not come back to the Senate or the House. Okay, so all these are part of the problems that have led to the situation that we have now found ourselves, and I think it's unfortunate because without the three arms of government independent of one another to a large degree and checking each other, what we have is a dictatorship of a few against the many, and that will be very sad indeed.
But somehow, even up to tomorrow, okay, let me be modest. Up to today, you still find, when you have probes here and there, you still find a situation whereby there's always that tendency to kowtow before the villa and this oil probe and all these kind of things. And it's a sickening thing. We don't seem to have a way out of the entire thing.
Unless and until we begin to first have credible elections so that people know when they misbehave they will be voted out for sure. Okay, and two, we pick the right people in these positions, will not make any progress. Okay, a person with no pedigree, with no name and no honor has nothing to lose, so he will sell out to anyone that is ready to pay him. Okay, and this is most of the people we have in elective and appointive positions in government are of that quality. Most. There are some very few people with a name or a pedigree that they will not do certain things to spoil their family name. Most people come out of nowhere to hold positions that they have never dreamt of. Okay?
We are saying most people came out of nowhere to hold positions.
Came out of nowhere and are holding positions that they never dreamt of. And they have nothing to lose. They just think that if they have enough money, they'll be able to disappear and justify their criminality. So that is one problem. And this affects politics all across this country. The second thing is elections must matter. Elections must matter. If people know that they were elected, and if they misbehave and it is known they will lose the next election, they will behave themselves. But when people know that they do not have to win elections, they do not have to be voted for, they can pay INEC, SSS, police to write the results and declare them the winner, and then they steal enough money to bribe the judges to uphold the election. Why should they work for you? Why should they be accountable to you as the voter? You didn't vote for them, they know it.
It's a major issue you have just touched on, the question of making elections matter. You know, we've been saying this and we have always known this over the years, but somehow the more that people try to talk about it, even INEC and the INEC people will tell you they are working towards it, but somehow you still find out that even the last elections, not everybody believes they were credible. I mean, elections did not really...
I don't believe the last elections were credible. I don't believe it.
So how do we make elections matter?
Look, we need to appoint people. Look, everything in countries like ours, where institutions are weak, you need people that care about their names and reputations much more than they care about the job or the power that comes with the job, or the patronage that comes with the job, and so on. And you have to do this very, very carefully.
But that was what we thought somebody like Jega would do, because we thought Jega was a very credible person until he came in.
Well, maybe you got it wrong. Maybe you didn't check well enough. People have said that the reason why our electoral commissioners are not independent is because they are appointed by the president, so they feel an obligation to the president. That is hogwash. The chairman of the Ghanaian Electoral Commission was also appointed through the same process by the president and confirmed by the legislature. But he had a name to protect.
So
and for him, no amount of money was worth putting his name on the line. The question that you should ask all these people that are national commissioners of INEC and so on, and resident electoral commissioners, is look at them very well and ask yourself, is there an amount of money that when offered to them they will compromise? If there is, then you know you don't have the right candidate. That is the question. I have studied the Ghanaian constitution and the Nigerian constitution to see what did Ghana get right that we got wrong. What Ghana got right was that Jerry Rawlings had the courage of conviction to pick a person that he knew he could not dictate to. That is the foundations of Ghana's electoral system. Rawlings knew that that man will not rig elections, even for Rawlings. And if Rawlings asked him, the man would resign and come out and announce that Rawlings asked me to rig elections, that's why I'm resigning. That is the key. Do we have people in Nigeria that you can appoint to positions that would say, rather than do the wrong thing, I would rather leave? This is what we need. It is not the method of appointment, it is the quality of the people. If we're able to do that, we'll get some wrong. Don't get, I'm not in any way suggesting that there was no effort at the last cycle to try to get credible people. Maybe there was, but clearly the elections of 2011 were a deception and a fraud. And the point when INEC refused to release ballot papers and the biometric voters register, which we spent 87 billion naira to do, the moment they refused to release that to the opposition to prove the electoral fraud in court, I wrote off INEC. Up until that point, I gave them a chance. But the moment their lawyers went to the tribunal to try, to say that, they were not going to provide that, and even connived with the president to remove Justice Salami to facilitate that, I knew that we didn't have an INEC to speak about.
You mean INEC connived with the presidency to remove Salami?
They were part of the conspiracy. I believe that strongly.
But to imagine that things like that happen under a Jega-led INEC is just been very strange. But people have spoken, have interviewed people.
It is strange, but it has happened. The records are there. Justice Salami gave an order for INEC to produce the ballot papers and the biometric register and make it available to the opposition parties to match the ballot papers with the biometric register. And INEC delayed and delayed until Salami was removed. And for Jega to even come and testify He found a reason not to be in the country on the day he was supposed to testify. This happened in court. I was attending the tribunals. I saw it. And I was shocked. But this happened. Whatever conclusion you draw from that is up to you. But for me, that was the day I gave up. I said, well, you know, we are in a hopeless situation. But unless we find a way to fix that, unless we find a way to have clean elections, our democracy will be a farce and this country will not have peace.
And that you are, after returning from exile and coming back after the unfortunate death of YarAdua, because nobody wished him to die. We all wanted him to die.
No, I came back before YarAdua died.
Yeah, sure, that is true. That is true. You came back before.
I came back I came back on the 1st of May. He died on the 5th.
But we all knew the health condition. Then he was in a very sorry situation.
Yeah.
Then. So, I mean, now those were the heady days of whether this man will be active president or not, and stuff like that. And some of us thought we were also close to Jonathan, because, like I was telling you earlier, we understood you were part of those that helped in making Jonathan YarAdua's running mate. But somehow you seem to have parted ways again, despite what was like an initial endorsement.
Yeah, first let me correct that impression. We did not play any role in the emergence of any candidates as such.
Okay. But you played a role
not directly. At a point, we came to the conclusion that President Obasanjo wanted Odili to succeed him. And we were opposed to that because Odili had been investigated by the EFCC and had been found wanting in many areas. Okay, he was the governor of a very rich state that just frittered away the resources of the state, to pursue a presidential ambition. We didn't think that with the issues Odili had, he was the best candidate. Okay, so we were opposed to that. But having said that, and of course, by the time Obasanjo picked YarAdua, on the night of the convention, a speech was prepared for YarAdua, an acceptance speech with Odili listed in the speech as his running mate. It was it was first the governors that opposed it, and then Nuhu Ribadu woke up and went to see Obasanjo, and that matter was settled. So we played a role in saying, no, this one is not the right person. But we didn't have any hand in who ended up being picked. Okay. For instance, as I said, we thought Odili was the wrong person because of the issues surrounding his tenure in Rivers State. But we didn't have a role. We didn't have a hand in YarAdua being selected over.
And you didn't select any alternative to Odili? I mean, as running mate?
No. We didn't select anybody because that was the prerogative of the party and the president.
But we learned that some of you felt that at least the running mate should be an Igbo man or something like that.
I told Obasanjo, it was not some of us, I can speak for myself. After the Odili thing was dropped and Obasanjo said a decision will be taken and YarAdua just read his acceptance speech without this, I was of the opinion that selecting a Southeast running mate is in accordance with the natural order of things in Nigeria, the tripod. Okay? I thought that the running mate should be an Igbo person, so that after YarAdua's 2 terms, there will be a natural progression to a Southeast presidency. That was how I thought. Obasanjo felt otherwise. Gave the reason that the South have never produced a president, but the Southeast has produced 1 or 2, and said that he was speaking a South-South running mate. That was the extent of conversation I had with Obasanjo on this subject, and we had no hand in who he ended up picking. The next day, we just got the information that he had picked Goodluck Jonathan.
And so maybe it was this background of misperception about the way You were close to him. I mean, Jonathan in
No,
helping
no,
to.
no. Jonathan is my friend. Has been my friend from 2003. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying that even though he was my friend, even though I was a regular visitor to Bayelsa State when he was governor, and he visited me several times here in Abuja while I was minister. Okay. He came with his executive council to attend an FCTX meeting one day. I still remember all
You mean
that.
Bayelsa
Yeah,
executive?
yeah, we're very good friends. Okay, and we still are, by the way, even though we have parted ways politically. Yes, yes. It's not, whatever is happening between us, it's not personal, it's institutional. Okay, but I had no role in him being vice president. No, I have to say that. I played a role in fighting the YarAdua cabal when they were playing all kinds of games to delay complying with the constitution. Okay, because I was one of the signatories of the call for resignation, the G53 and G57, which became Save Nigeria Group. I was one of the founding members of that group. So yeah, we played a role, but we didn't do it. I didn't do it because Jonathan was my friend. Okay, I did it because we have a constitution, and if the president is incapacitated, the vice president should take over. Whether the vice president is black or blue or from Mars or from the moon, I don't care. I believe that we should comply with the constitution, and this is why people like us, Pastor Tunde Bakari, all came out and organized marches and all that, you know, to to push for this solution. So people that now turn around and say, oh, you are attacking Jonathan, conveniently forget some of these roles that we played in enabling Jonathan to get to the position that he did. But we didn't do it because we liked him or didn't like him. We did it because it was the right thing. And today, if Jonathan as president is not doing the right thing, we would also similarly tell him. And that's what we've been doing.
There's a follow-up question I need to ask, because I remember very very well that the what I would call the political environment in which there is this kind of hiatus between pro Jonathan, anti Jonathan, even within the PDP is and before you even talk of the opposition, it's something I find strange, because here was a man who everybody that mattered in this country united in favor of his emerging as acting president. You had the Buhari, you had the IBB, you had all of them.
All of them.
Go on, all of
Yes.
them were
Yes.
saying this man must be acting president.
Yes.
He came to power with the highest amount of goodwill.
Yes. Because of the way he was being maltreated by the
So
YarAdua.
what happened that just shortly between that period of his emergence as acting president and when the election time came, what happened so terribly that the goodwill was just filtered away? What could have been responsible for this filtering away of goodwill, that we had this kind of quarrelsome?
It is crass political mismanagement. Okay, because as you correctly pointed out, he came into the acting presidency with millions of tons of goodwill, but he frittered all away by just being provincial, uh, very narrow-minded politics, and lacking in long-term strategy. Um, First, as soon as Jonathan stabilized, it became clear that just like YarAdua tended to be very provincial about Katsina Kano axis, Jonathan also was increasingly being seen as an Ijo president. Okay, so he began to lose a lot of goodwill that way. Secondly, the way and manner he approached the pursuit of his presidential ambition by denying the existence of zoning when he had been a beneficiary of it, just showed him up as a dishonorable person, because he got there because of zoning. Otherwise, how could he have been vice president? It was zoning. But he climbed on a ladder and he kicked it away. And that is something you don't do in politics. That is something you don't do. And after the massive spending of money and the militarization and the rigging to win the elections, he lacked the heart to be inclusive, to call people and bring everyone back together, develop social cohesion so that he could govern. Some of us that are in opposition were targeted as enemies to be destroyed. Maybe you can destroy Nasir El-Rufai, I'm a small man. But Buhari is bigger than you. You can't destroy Buhari. He was head of state in 1984. You cannot destroy him.
Did they attempt destroying Buhari?
Yes.
In what sense?
By trying to pin the post-election violence on Buhari and the CPC. By trying to pin the Boko Haram insurgency on Buhari and others like him. You are trying to destroy people that have served this country credibly and honestly. You don't win by doing that. This is what this government had tried to do. This is why they have lost all their goodwill. But even that would have been okay if they were working. If they were doing what Nigerians need to live and move on with their lives. That would have been tolerable. But they are not. This government's full-time job is stealing. The fuel subsidy fraud showed it. Pensions fraud. Everywhere you look is fraud. They are doing nothing but taking care of themselves. But they are making an enemy of everyone that is not clapping for them and saying stealing is good. How can that be? This is how Jonathan lost everything.
Even before, the interesting thing, you raised this interesting issue which I should follow up. This issue of targeting people, Buhari as a source, as trying to make Buhari look like the source of Boko Haram.
Buhari, IBB, you know, a bombing takes place in Abuja 1st of October. Men said we did it. President of Nigeria comes on television to say it's not men. So who did it? 2 days later, we hear from Henry Oka that he has been called from the villa to say blame it on Northerners. How do you make friends that way? Who are the Northerners to blame it on?
If it's not Buhari today, it's YarAdua.
It's IBB.
If it's not Buhari, it's IBB.
If it is not IBB, it's Abdul Salam or it's Rufai. How can you be president that way?
Now, the question I was going to ask is, if these key people are the problems, then who will be the solution?
I think you should pass that question to Jonathan. Because these people that you mentioned, IBB, Buhari, Abdul Salam, Atiku, they all served this country. They did not do anything to bring the country down. So, what is all this? How can you just wake up one morning and try to criminalize them? And you think they will sit back and accept it because you're president? I don't know about them. But anybody that tries to criminalize Nasir El-Rufai should know that he has a battle on his hands till one of us drops dead. And if they have any doubt, they should go and ask YarAdua. I will fight you until I'm dead or you are dead. Because I will not sit back and be criminalized. This is what this government is doing.
Still on this, and probably that is why we still have not been able to address this very fundamental problem being posed by threat being posed by Boko Haram. Why do you think that it's been taking this long to actually address this issue, which started like a low-level insurgency, really?
Yeah, because the government under Jonathan is not interested in solving it.
How do you mean?
Good. Shortly after Jonathan came into power, a committee under the chairmanship of Air Marshal DK studied this problem of Boko Haram, because by then Boko Haram had regrouped and started shooting, killing policemen and other people in uniform in Borno State. That was how it started. In July 2009, YarAdua ordered that Boko Haram be crushed and flew to Brazil. There was military operation, people were killed, houses were destroyed, and the leaders of Boko Haram were arrested alive and extrajudicially executed. That is the root of the problem. That was when Boko Haram became more deadly. The remnants of the leadership then regrouped and started taking their revenge against policemen. That was the context when the Admiral Dike, Air Marshal Dike's committee was established. They spent time in the affected areas, they spoke to stakeholders and came back with clear recommendations as to what was to be done. At that point in time, from those that participated in the committee, what Boko Haram wanted was an apology for the execution of their leaders, financial compensation, rebuilding of their homes and mosques that were destroyed, and release of their members, and they said they will back off. This information is in the Dike report. The Dike report also recommended some social and economic infrastructure interventions in that region to create employment so that the young people that are easy recruits of Boko Haram will be reduced in number. All these are in the report. This report has been with Jonathan from the time he was president. It has not been acted upon.
You mean from the time he was acting president?
Yes. It has not been acted upon. After that, another committee under the chairmanship of Ambassador, what's his name now? Gaji Galtimari, was set up to go and look at the problem. Gaji Galtimari is from that area. And he was somebody who had been secretary to the government. Gaji Galtimari's committee also studied the situation, talked to stakeholders, and came back with similar recommendations. Nobody has heard of what has happened to that report. It has not been implemented. After the elections, Jonathan established the Sheikh Lemu's committee to look at post-election violence. They went around the country, including areas affected by Boko Haram, and they submitted recommendations on how to resolve post-election crisis, as well as the collateral issue of insurgents. The report is still with the government. So, what I'm trying to say is this. The government knows this problem. It has been studied to death. They know the solutions, but they have refused to implement them. Why? Because initially, the attitude of the Jonathan administration to this Boko Haram insurgency was founded on two assumptions. One, Northerners are killing themselves, we don't care. And a special advisor to Jonathan said this in June 2011 to a friend of mine. This is not a rumor, I can mention names if need be.
But you don't want to mention it.
I don't want to mention names now, but the person that said it knows he said it. In London in June, in the Hilton, Park Lane Hilton. Northerners are killing themselves, what is our own? This is one leg of the attitude. The second leg is Boko Haram is a plot by Northerners to destabilize Jonathan's government. So it's not our problem. We'll crush them. And the crushing them means try to link Boko Haram to some of us in opposition. If you go to my Facebook wall, you'll see it. People call me Boko Haramist and all kinds of things.
For a very long time.
They call me Boko Haramist, they call me all kinds of things. This is the attitude. Okay? Now, in the beginning, it was, a low-level insurgency, all right. It was a low-level insurgency in the beginning. And it could have been contained if the recommendations of various committees had been implemented and so on. But the attitude of the administration was, we don't care and we'll pin it on Buhari, IBB, CPC, and so on. So they spend their time looking at the wrong direction, and these guys got stronger and stronger and stronger, and it got to a point that the government was just unable to contain the situation. And anyone that tried to make a suggestion that, look, why don't you look at those reports or negotiate with these people, is termed a Boko Haram sponsor or sympathizer. So what happened? Everyone just stepped back, folded his arms, and said, okay, you want to solve it your way, fine. But there was also something else going on. The government was also doing their own Boko Haram.
You have said this.
I have said this, and I'm still restating it, and there is circumstantial evidence to that effect.
What's giving you so much confidence about this?
I have always asked myself, why would Boko Haram go and plant a bomb in a church? Why? Boko Haram considers non-practicing Muslims a bigger enemy than Christians. I don't think their problem has ever been with Christians. So why did this start? I know about the Madala bombing, which they came out and claimed. I'm discounting that one. That one they claimed they did it, and they gave reasons. They said retaliation for Jos or whatever happened in Jos Asala. All the other bombings, many of us believe that it was being sponsored by some fifth columnists in the government.
To achieve what aim now?
To divide the country. Division.
In whose interest?
I don't know. People do their own calculations and their projections, thinking that the way they think something is the way things will work out. They don't know that life doesn't quite work out the way you planned it. But clearly there is a deliberate policy of division being promoted by these people. And I don't know to what end. I don't know.
It's interesting. Maybe maybe you should tell us a little bit about life in the opposition, because you have faced some risks and all that, being arrested by the SS and all that. So what exactly? How do you cope with this kind of thing? And you seem to enjoy it. You are laughing.
No. I'm not like. Look, you know what? As I said, in this life, you deal with the fate. You deal with the cards fate hands to you. I mean, if I have chosen to leave the PDP because I think it's a gang of criminals, okay, and I don't want to live with them, and I'm doing something different, and they are in power, I will expect consequences. I knew that. I made that calculation.
So you're not surprised that SSS comes after you?
I'm not surprised. I mean, the security agencies think they are instruments of those in power rather than instruments of the state. So I expected that things like that would happen. So when it happens, I just take it and move on. What am I supposed to do? Cry? I can't. Whatever you see in whatever life confronts you, you try to solve it. I don't get worried about that.
Maybe we should dash into this other very important issue. I mean, your party CPC trying to work out an alliance or some kind of merger with the ACN towards giving the nation the prospect of change in 2015. How far is it going? Because people still wonder, why is it taking this long? But the entire outfit should be out by now. Why the delay?
Well, I don't want to say a lot about that because for obvious reasons. But I just want to assure you we are still negotiating, we are talking, and we are making progress. And by God's grace, we are not only going to march, but we are going to take other parties with us. So Nigerians will have a credible opposition platform with a fighting chance of defeating the PDP at the next election.
And this fighting chance, people think generally means making Buhari the next candidate. Excuse me, let me just finish. Why Buhari always? After all the experiences we have had.
No, I don't think that is that issue is on the table right now. Okay, what is on the table right now is the unity of opposition and building strong structures all over the country to match and outstrip that of the PDP. When the parties all come together, the decision as to which candidate is in the best position to win the next election will be taken, and which candidate is is finally selected by the merged parties will even depend on whether that candidate is likely to face a Jonathan or someone else. So it is too early to start making those calculations. Of course, there are presidential aspirants all over, and you could speculate about who would emerge. And of course, Buhari is a strong candidate, having been president before, and the general level of insecurity and corruption and impunity in this country may probably call for someone with Buhari's credentials. But that is not on the table right now. What is on the table right now is to unite and build a very strong nationwide party